Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Revenue Diaries. Thanks for tuning in. I'm just going to give you a brief intro. You know the drill. Today's episode is brought to you by, surprise, it's Lessonly, lessonly.com. Let's switch it up a little bit. Best coaching and enablement software out there for sales and customer service teams. If you're selling it or if you're servicing it and you need to train people, Lessonly is where you go. You can check out more at lessonly.com. Okay, so pretty pumped for today's guest, Justin Welsh, gentleman, scholar, one of the best sales leader I know. He was the original founder of Thursday Night Sales, where I dove into the sales world as a marketer. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about how he transitioned out of patient pop. We talked about his abstinence from alcohol for 90 days, how he's selfish with his time, and my favorite thing is you should talk about getting it right, not being right. So I hope you enjoy it, and tune in next time. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, everyone. Welcome to the Revenue Diaries, a deeply personal interview series where we ask the top revenue leaders in the world 5 or 6 questions about their work, fears, family, and life. There's just one catch. We do not share any of the questions in advance. All right, so let's do it. I'm really excited to have our next guest on the show. He's a gentleman, a scholar, a damn good sales leader, and now a world-renowned solopreneur or entrepreneur. I'm still trying to figure out the difference. Welcome to the show, Justin. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Cool. My name is Justin Welsh. I am the founder of my own consulting and advising firm, just Justin D. Welsh LLC, for lack of a better name, being more creative. And prior to that, most folks might know me. I spent about 5 years at a company called Patient Pop in Los Angeles, where I was the VP of sales, the SVP of sales, and then came back for a second stint, which a lot of people don't know about, as the chief revenue officer most recently. And prior to that, I spent about 5 years at a company called ZocDoc, where I was a sub 10 employee from 09 to 2014. So last 10 years in healthcare technology, both companies sub 10. And now I'm out on my own trying to see if I can survive and spend some time with my family.
It's awesome. All right. Again, Justin did not receive the questions ahead of time. How are you feeling about this, Justin?
Good, man. I'm an open book, so I'm not nervous. I'm pretty transparent and candid about both my wins and my losses in my career. So
Sure.
so have at it.
All right. I'm going to start with an easy question. This one was submitted by Mr. Scott Lease.
Oh, wow.
Ask him why he couldn't find working internet anywhere between California and Tennessee during his relo. Last I checked, the states in between also have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I was on the road. I just recently moved from LA to Nashville. And I hosted a series called Thursday Night Sales. And when I got to every Airbnb that I stayed in or every hotel, it didn't matter where it was at. Every Thursday night, the Wi-Fi was just garbage. And I think Scott and Amy thought that I was trying to get out of co-hosting the show, but I wasn't. Like I had 300 people on a Zoom call, and like my Wi-Fi I was answering a question with all sorts of vigor, and meanwhile, like everyone's texting me saying like, can't hear you, can't see you, and it was just like the most miserable experience. And for those who know me, I'm a control freak, and I also have a lot of anxiety, and so like that was a lot of pressure for me. And so it was frustrating. So thanks, Scott, for bringing that up. But I'm here. I've got Google Fiber plugged in now. I got a landline. So we're good to go.
Okay. So let's, I mean, you started Thursday Night Sales, right? With Scott, or was that originally you? Okay. So you've done an excellent job just transitioning, and Thursday Night Sales kind of plays into this.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I think it's a talent. You don't just jump around. You spent 4 years at both ZocDoc and Patient Pop. And for all of you listening or watching, 4 years is a freaking lifetime in venture-backed software. Short tenures is usually due to extreme up and downs that you experience in the role. How do you know when to power through and take on the challenges, or when enough is enough? And I would love I'd love to know across your entire career, and also because you just signed off on Thursday Night Sales,
Mhm.
what made you do that as well? But how do you know when to power through?
Yeah. So when I got involved with ZocDoc, I recognized what a huge opportunity it was. And just chatting with my dad was at the same company for like 40 consecutive years, and he's like, "Hey, it's not like that anymore." But you don't want to be this guy or gal who's like jumping around every 12 to 18 months. Now, there are some people who will tell you that's great. You can make more
Yeah.
money that way
Yeah.
and all this stuff. But like, I'm not here for short term. I'm here for long term. Like, I think about the long game when I make moves. And so my goal was not to like do a really great job selling and then become a manager and then like leap. My goal was to stay at that company for as long as possible. I'm talking ZocDoc when I got in, because I was sub 10. Like, I thought the equity was going to be worth a ton of money. And like, so it was all this driving sort of force. And I also just want to make a name for myself. And then lastly, like, I was surrounded by really incredible and intelligent people. You look at the Revenue Collective, man, there's like so
Yeah.
many ex-ZocDockers, right? It's like the mafia. And so for me, I continued to move through the ranks there, and I recognized that I was gaining more skills, even spending like a longer tenure as a manager. I spent 2.5 years as an area sales manager, which isn't like a huge tenure, but a lot of guys want to go for the director role at that point in time. But I was gaining skills, gaining responsibility. I was moving around. I was solving challenges. And so I wanted to have that tenure. For me, when I knew that ZocDoc wasn't the right role for me anymore, is pretty simple. Got in the shower one morning and I was sad. I didn't want to go to work, and I was like, "This isn't that
Yeah.
exciting anymore." I was in a role I didn't love. I was reporting directly to the CEO, Cyrus, who I love, but the role just wasn't for me. And so I was like, "That's it." And so I went in and I gave my 2 weeks, and that was ZocDoc. Patient Pop was a little bit different. Um, I was going into my sixth year or maybe fifth year of being in venture backed startups. I took on that first executive role. I thought going in, like, yeah, I'll get this thing to 1 million or 3 million or 5 million. Like, that's a huge number. Like, I was 32 years old. I didn't know much about like how big I could go.
Hmm.
And then I'll get a gray hair in over me, and they'll take it from wherever I can get it to the next spot. And it didn't work that way. I got a lot of, I got lucky, made some good hires, brought some good folks along with me. But Patient Pop was different. It wasn't when I got sad or bummed out about going to work. It was when I lost control. And I don't mean lost control in a way where like I didn't have control of my department or my organization. I always had control of those things. What I mean is, there was so much going on that I couldn't prioritize effectively my personal and business life. And so like I was working from 5 in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night. And that's cool to do every once in a while. And you got to do that as an executive, but like nonstop for like the last 18 months that I was there, neglecting my mental health, neglecting my physical health. And so because of that, like I just took a look in the mirror one day and I was like, this got to stop.
Hmm.
And so like I went and had a conversation with the co-founders, and I still have an incredible relationship with them today, which you can see through my second stint there.
Hmm.
But I just knew it was time to get my mind and my body in shape and take a step back from the anxiety and the stress that comes with being a revenue operator, and do that. And so that's what I did. And that's I just listen to myself. I listen to my body. I listen to my mind. I take a look around and see when things are going poorly. And then I set the rest of the company up for success by stepping out appropriately and responsibly.
So you mentioned the patient pop thing where mental health, your physical health waned,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you've said you had a tweet recently that was like simple career advices, and one of
Mm-hmm.
them, among many things, is to stop drinking during the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about at the time that we're recording this, I'm about 4 days into cutting alcohol out entirely
Mm.
for at least a month because I've just felt like it has been a drag on me
Mm-hmm.
recently, and it's amazing how different you feel. It's almost like I'm not even sure why, other than the fact that I enjoy it, why I was doing it to begin with. I think a lot of it has to do with mental health. Can
Mm-hmm.
you talk about your experiences with alcohol in the
Sure.
past and
Sure.
how you've changed for the better?
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, I'm a control freak, and when I felt like maybe work was going out of control, like you look for outlets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very common outlet. And so for me, I also happen to be a fan of that. Like I'm a huge craft beer nerd,
Yeah,
and like
me too.
my wife and I travel all over the world to go to wine countries. And like at some point you go from being like someone who indulges to someone who like uses it as an escape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in late 2018, I actually did the same thing that you're doing now, which is I think I went just short of about 90 days. So I cut alcohol from my diet for about 90 days. And boy, the transformation was amazing. Like I lost like 40 pounds right away. You're just clear waking up, like
Yeah,
working was, sorry, those are my dogs. So you're going to,
that's all right.
welcome to COVID. And so like I was a little more clear, like everything was just really great. I've gradually added it back in, and like, but there are definitely times when I feel like when I get a little bit out of control, that becomes something that I naturally turn to, like have an extra beer that night or have an extra glass of wine. And so for me, it's always like I want to try and be responsible about it and not use it as a crutch. So for me, it's always sort of a battle that I'm fighting for sure.
So it's mostly when you feel down and out, and if you start gravitating towards the drinking or
Totally.
whatever your crutch is, then
Yeah, it
it's
can
time
be
to,
anything.
yeah,
I'll eat too many burgers. Like I
yeah,
got a million crutches. Like, I'll watch too much TV. Like it's just like it can be anything. That's just one that I know that makes me feel real shitty the next day.
yeah.
So like if I watch too much TV, I still don't feel great, but I don't feel as shitty if I have an extra glass of wine. So
Yeah, that's very true. And you need
yeah.
to update your Vivino app because you haven't updated in like 5 years.
Oh
Because
really?
I randomly found it. I don't know how when I was doing research for this, and you had some good wine on there when you were
Yeah,
rating
man.
them, and
I drink good wine, man. It's just
notes of chocolate and cocoa and all that
oh
stuff.
God. Oh God. Don't find my beer advocate profile is like when I was like 25. So cool. Good to find it.
So transitioning a little bit, you've had a couple moments, you've had a lot of moments in your career where you've made big bets. You've moved across the country now. I feel like it's been 10 times. Uh,
Mhm.
I would say moving on from Patient Pop, starting a company is a big bet. You've also made statements with some interviews on, as long as I had an opportunity to move forward, I said yes. There's
Mhm.
nothing too small, too risky, etc. I think it's common. Well, I'd like to think it's common for a lot of marketing, sales, revenue leaders of software companies to make big bets because we have the opportunity to do it, because we have the resources to do it. Do
Mhm.
you bet big and take the same um, calculated or uncalculated risks in your personal life?
No, no, I don't. Um, I'm extraordinarily risk averse in my personal life. Um, wow, that's a great question. No, I don't do anything risky. I won't even put on like rollerblades. Like I'd like to be in control of my feet. Like I don't like anything risky. Like I've never bungee jumped. I've never done anything. Like I've never. I mean, the craziest thing I do is move a lot, but moving is for me for work. Like I've said yes to every forward moving role in my career since 2009. It's 11 years. ZocDoc moved me from New York to San Fran, then to Boston, then to LA, then back to New York. And then I moved to LA with Patient Pop. Now I moved to Nashville. And like, it's just on and on and on, but I do it for opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me. I don't have kids, right? So like, it's easy for me to do that. I have a wife. And so it's not always easy on her or even on me, but my personal life, man, it's just like, boy, I don't take any risks. And so no one would describe me as a risky guy in my personal life. Maybe my wife would describe my collegiate experience or activities as potentially risky in an angry tantrum. But outside of that, no, I'm certainly not risky.
It's so I can't wait to put all these interviews together because it crosses the board, right? Like some people that have taken huge bets, they're very risk averse in their personal life, and some are the exact opposite. So
Yep.
you mentioned kids. You talk a lot about selflessness, thoughtfulness, positive intent, empathy, giving back, et cetera, in sales, right?
Mhm.
Which are all amazing attributes of a great father. Do you have any plans to expand the Welsh family legacy with kids? I know you have one or two dogs, three
Three.
dogs, three
Yeah.
dogs. I mean, do
Yeah.
you have any plans to start a family, and how do you manage that with, your wife is an entrepreneur as well as yourself?
Yeah. No, we don't. No, we're childless by design. Um, You know, we got married in 14. So we got married when I was 33 and my wife would have been 35, maybe
Hmm.
32 and 34. I don't remember. My wife is just a couple years older than I am. And we talked about it all the time. But like what we get enjoyment out of in life is traveling. We love to travel, and not that you can't travel with kids. I know you can, but like, I don't know. I am selfless to a point, but when it comes to my time, I
Hmm.
am really selfish with my time. Um, and so I feel like if I had a child, like it'd be great. It would probably be the greatest thing that I've ever done. Right. Let me just pause and stop and say that. But it doesn't match our lifestyle. And my wife is bought in with that. She feels the same way. It sort of just didn't happen. And then
Hmm.
we like one day we kind of looked at each other and we had never said it out loud. Right. And the first time that you say it out loud is actually really challenging. And there's some emotion that goes behind that. And like, I'm an only child. So I feel like disappointing my parents and like, the family doesn't go on. And my wife has a brother, but he doesn't appear to be having kids, and she's not having kids, and they're the two only kids. So like there's like a tremendous amount of guilt that comes with it.
Yeah.
But in the end, like this is a choice that I wanted to make for myself and for my wife. And so we feel really confident in our choice, and we certainly second guess it every once in a while, like a
Sure.
normal human being, but we feel
We
like
we
we've
second
made the
guess
right
having
choice.
children. So I mean, my wife and I were
Yeah.
talking about it the other day. Did we? I mean, we feel like we're terrible parents. Did we really make a good decision?
Yeah, that's funny. We feel good about it, and we keep adopting dogs that we find on the side of the road, and that's our contribution to
I'm sorry.
society.
Do you actually do that? You find dogs on the side of the road?
Yeah, we've two of our dogs came from adoption, and then one of our dogs, Munchie, we just found on the side of the street in Crenshaw in LA, and my wife's just like, like swing the car over, probably
Love
almost
it.
got into an
Makes sense.
accident,
Yeah.
scooped
That's
Munchie up. He
amazing.
was like a homeless dog, and now he's like the cutest thing in the world. So yeah, my wife and I both, we love dogs, so we'll probably have four pretty soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And a quick disclaimer to everybody listening or watching. I think both routes in life are amazing. So let's just throw that out there right now.
Yep.
So,
Sure.
all right. Last revenue diaries question, then we have a bonus question. Your wife
Cool.
is we mentioned that your wife is also an entrepreneur. She started Culture Ops, right, in
Hmm.
2017, which
Hmm.
is amazing. Did her journey inspire you to make your shift where you rolled out to start your own thing, take the jump into starting your own firm?
Oh boy. Gosh, I'm actually thinking, did it? I don't know that it did. I think that when my wife started her business, um, I still felt the joy of working in a company with
Mhm.
really smart people solving really big challenges. In 2017, I did not feel like going out on my own. I didn't have that bug or that itch. I think what drove me to start my own thing was the recognition that time is our greatest currency. And I started to think more about that as I went from being, a 33-year-old VP of sales to suddenly it was 38. It's not old by any
Yeah.
means, right? But just starting to recognize that time is the currency, and that no matter how much money I made, um, it didn't really have a huge impact on my happiness. What impacts my happiness is being able to spend my time the way that I want to, doing exactly what I want to with whom I want to. And I felt like the best way to do that was to go out and start my own thing. And I was nervous about that, but it worked really well. And now I work 3 days a week, and I use Mondays, days which we're recording on, to do stuff like this. Do
Mhm.
really fun, interesting things. Sit down and strategize with my wife. Our next move is to create a business together. So I want to start building and creating on my own, and own my time, and that's, I think, what eventually kicked it off for me.
Is it anything having to do with dogs?
It's not. It is not with dogs, and I'm not sharing too much about it. It's
No,
why I
you
stepped.
shouldn't. You
It's
shouldn't.
why I stepped down from Thursday night sales. Was I like to stay focused, and so I want to
Love it.
focus all my energy on this next thing.
It's a very important thing to know. Focus is probably the most important thing you can do in general. I learned that at OpenView from the founder, Scott Maxwell. His main thing was focus, whether it was a go-to-market strategy, an ICP, or, your personal life. Focus is everything. And you are the only one that can do that. You're the only one that can make it happen. And it's really up to you. So I mean, I was going to throw you a bonus question out there for just all the practitioners. Like, what's your best advice to revenue leaders who are, still in this crazy world of scaling SaaS companies? I feel like that's a great piece of advice to end on, but do you have anything else that you would throw out there for the sales, marketing, customer success
Yeah.
leaders?
And it may play more to sales leaders simply because of the way that we're built. We're built to be a bit more ego driven, right? A lot of sales leaders are like the young man or young woman who was the top individual contributor and got all the accolades and drove their career forward. And like, they've got a really big ego. And I'm not saying everyone like that. I certainly have had that in my past, but ultimately what ends up happening is you find yourself in a leadership role or an executive role, and you care about being right. And I hate that. You shouldn't care about being right. You should care about getting it right. And there's a difference between those two things. Stop trying to win every argument. Stop trying to have the opinion that lasts the longest. Stop trying to be right. And instead, surround yourself with people that will challenge you and be open to those that do that. If you're open to those that challenge you, you may discover that you are in fact wrong. And if you discover that you're wrong and you implement the right strategy, then you get to get it right without being right the first time. And that is a much better outcome for any business that you're trying to build. So that would be my advice.
Oh, I love it. I want to do like the praise hands emoji. I think that's what it is, right? Is this the praise hands for those?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so.
This has been awesome, Justin. Thank you. Could you tell the fine folks listening or watching where they can find you?
Sure. There's a couple places they can find me. I have a website, which is theofficialjustin.com. Corny, but easy to remember. You can check me out on LinkedIn. It's Justin Welsh, WELSH, or Twitter, Justin SAAS, Justin Sass. If you want to drop me an email, it's justinwelsh@hey.com.
I'm sorry. Do you own Justin.com?
No, I own theofficialjustin.com. My emails,
Oh,
I got a hey email address, justinwelsh@hey.com. Yeah.
I thought you meant the official pause, Justin.com. I was like,
No,
holy hell, man. That is awesome.
I wish.
Great. Again, Justin, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It always is. That wraps up another episode of Revenue Diaries. I'm not Joe Rogan or Justin Welsh. So if you like this episode, hell, if you love Justin, go rate, subscribe, download, share, review, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Thanks for listening and watching. Cheers, everybody.